guys, Jordan Belfort, the wolf is in the wolf's den. It's going to be our last podcast in this location. Might be one more. I'm moving back to our new office. You know, my life's been a bit crazy, but things are great. It's going to be an awesome podcast today because I got 3 amazing guests who are in the sales business. These guys are experts. So we're going to be doing a lot of talking about sales itself, about the home improvement industry, which these guys are in. They're at the top of the game here. They train salespeople all over the country at this stuff, and to the point where like the industry itself is booming. So like there's a business opportunity side to the equation here as well. But I think most of all here, we're going to get to uncover some real nuggets. And also there's an event coming up in April. We'll talk about that later in Vegas. And I'm going to be speaking at this event as the keynote speaker. So you should probably attend. All right. So let me welcome here. We got Nick, Nathan, and Dominic. All right. And why don't you guys introduce yourself? Full name, Nick?
Sure.
Nick
Richmond.
Nick Richmond.
Dominic Caminata.
Nathan Richmond.
Boom. Okay. Nathan's he's massive, this guy. We don't want to fuck with this guy, okay? He's tough, okay? He's like the enforcer of the group. Anyway, guys, you've built a massive business around home improvements, right?
Mm-hmm.
$100 million a year business, right? Very profitable. You employ a lot of salespeople. You have a great rating. You're very ethical of what you do, which is important, right? Which is huge, right? Which is why I agreed to speak at the event. I checked you guys out. You guys are really great at what you do, and you're ethical. And it's not always the case in that business, so it's great to find companies that are doing it right. And of course, there's a lot of crossover between the straight line system. You guys study it. You have your own system that you use, and there's a lot of commonality. So let's talk about the things in your system. Let's start just with sales, right? We'll dive right in about what would you say the essence of your program is. And, you know, let's start with, you know, is it a program that's divided into steps? Is it script-based? Is it just sort of wing-it-based? Let's start right there. And please don't be Grant Cardone, where you're going to say, what? We hate sales. No.
Yeah, we're not in sales for the sales. So
Not being in sales is actually sales.
Yeah, so basically, kind of like you preach in your stuff, actually very much like what you preach in your books and your straight line system. We're big believers on having a script that people follow to a T. So we're very demanding on that. So we have a 3-week sales training program for any new sales rep that comes into our camp. And we demand that they learn this script verbatim. So essentially we have a 10-step sales training program that takes a salesperson from the moment they walk up to the customer's door to the moment they walk out of the sale, everything in between, exactly how to conduct a presentation. So like what you say in your Way of the Wolf, I want them more focused on their tonality, their body language, sure, reading the customer's nonverbal cues so they can take control of the situation from the moment they walk up to that door. But we actually call it a velvet hammer is what we call it, because essentially it's a one-sit close. So our salespeople go into the house, they have one opportunity to earn that customer's business. Mm-hmm. And it's important to do that in a professional, respectful way so they're not coming off high pressure.
But at the same time, understanding that if you don't close it there's not going to be a second shot.
Yep.
Hence the velvet hammer.
Correct.
So you got to be a bit tough, but you're going to do it very elegantly without alienating the customer and blowing the reputation of the company, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So the way I explain it to my salespeople is when you earn that customer's business, you treat them like royalty. It's your customer for life. Send them flowers, send them cookies, go visit them, friend them on Facebook. If you don't earn their business, you just forget they ever existed and move on to the next person. So you're always looking forward. Now, we obviously have an internal rehash program that we do to follow up with those people. But that salesman goes in, he knows he has one shot there in their business. So that's why he needs to be a well-trained assassin at this stuff and know it forwards and backwards.
Sure.
And we don't, these guys, especially their marketing is top-notch.
Sure.
Spend amazing amounts of money on leads. We're not going to put those in the customer or in the sales rep's hands and let them just wing it. So.
Let's talk about that. So first of all, what you're saying is, number one, just correct me if I'm wrong, right? So while the salesperson only has one shot to close them, as a company, you don't give up on that individual if they don't buy on that sit. Meaning it's the salesperson gives up that and moves on to the next one. Then the company will retarget that through some either email or calls. What do you do if they don't buy the first time? How aggressive will you follow up?
So I should mention the reason why in the home improvement industry it's the most efficient way to operate is to try to earn the customer's business while we're there, just because so much of it is price driven, which is actually a lot of times to the detriment of the homeowner, because sometimes they'll go with the lowest price and they end up getting the worst quality, right?
And material, right?
Yeah. So when we visit with them, we share a lot of information about our company, our products, and why it's unique, why it's different, what kind of warranties do we offer, etc. And that information is really top of mind when you're there. Now, when you leave, the last thing they remember is the price. So the odds of a callback are extremely rare. Now, we follow up as a company. We will follow up with them with some other product options, or possibly, usually it involves maybe another sale or discount. But the reality is, in our industry, if you don't know their business while you're there, they're not calling you back.
What percentage of the this is very important, because when people always ask me about what should my sales cycle look like, how many calls should be there, well, you have to really test it out and see what works. And some industries, it might take 2 or 3 sits, and that's okay, and others it's like stop one call, and if you don't get them the first time, you're never going to get them, and if you do once every 5,000, the amount of time you wasted chasing these people, you could have easily made a lot more money moving on to fresh blood, so to speak. So is that pretty much your industry?
I mean, not everyone operates that way. There are a lot of contractors that leave an estimate behind and say, call me back when you're ready. And you can there's different ways to skin a cat. But the nice thing is, in this industry, if you do it the right way, is you know where you stand on every lead. Mm-hmm. So if you run your lead tonight, Jordan, at your 6 o'clock and you close it, you know where you stand with that customer when you walk out that door. You know if you got a commission or not. So it's really efficient in that sense.
What percentage of the people who don't buy and that you retarget end up buying? Is it under 5%, under 2%, or 10%? It's a very small number.
10%. It's a small percentage.
10%, okay, fine. But
part of it's conditioning the rep too, right? The program we have is,
I get
it. If we leave any leeway for follow up, then they'll never one call close. So it's really important that we have that.
Now, to be clear, though, it's not really a 1-call system. It's actually a 2-call system, because they're being called on the telephone and they're setting up a home appointment, right? So correct me, I'm not sure. So is it that you're advertising online, getting leads, then you call those leads up by telephone, qualify them if it makes sense to send someone out to the house, they meet the criteria, then you send the rep out? Is that what's going on?
So we have a multifaceted marketing approach, but generally the reps don't have to generate their own appointments. They're focused on the appointments we give them. Mm-hmm. So everything from door-to-door canvassing, we're set up sometimes in retail environments, home shows, events. Now we also do major media, TV, internet, print, of course, and all that.
So there's lots of different ways you're out there generating leads, right? So essentially, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's the top end. You have all these different things. They feed into, always goes to a phone call, right? Is that so? Is the next step always a call or no?
Well, if we for example, if we canvass someone, we actually call it in from the front door and set that appointment right then and there. So they don't have to call us. That'd be more of an outbound, or we work an outbound list as well.
Okay.
But the thing I think we're trying to communicate to people out there that may not realize it is, this industry is great in the sense that you don't have to generate your own appointments. You can, which is certainly icing on the cake. But can you imagine getting handed 2 to 3 appointments every day throughout the week and just having to focus on the sale?
Salesman's dream, right?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So the idea with your company, and I'm sure it's different in other places, they're not like this, but so you basically have this like as a well-oiled machine where you have your marketing on one side of the equation. That could be, as you said, online. It could be offline. It could be in malls, knocking on doors. So all that feeds into then it turns into a call, an appointment is set, and then the home closer goes in there and has one shot to get it done. Right? Okay, great. I like that. Makes sense. Did you test any other systems along the way, or you were handed this, or I know this is not like this is an industry that's been around for many, many decades, right? So did you adopt someone else's system, or did you simply get to this point yourself by trial and error?
Well, it's handed down through the years. Our company is called Grosso University, which Rick Grosso was really the guru that we learned from. He's sort of like the Zig Ziglar of home improvements.
Okay.
And his systems are all based on the first call close. Now, there are other approaches out there, but usually when you look at the numbers, there's a lot less efficiency there. For example, if you were to maybe tee up a home show, or I should say a follow-up at the showroom, a showroom visit, kind of botched that. That's one way of doing it. There's companies that do it that way. When you look at the metrics on it, it's a lot less profitable, a lot less closing.
Sure.
So this is really the most streamlined approach that you can take in terms of the remodeling industry.
Okay. And so let's start the process here from when the salesperson, the home closer, knocks on that door, right? So they have a preset appointment. How much intelligence is gathered on that initial call? When you call them up, how much do you have like a certain, obviously, some questions that you ask? What's the criteria for sending a salesperson to someone's house?
Well, this is something you'll like, Jordan, in the sense that this is really true salesmanship because we do establish some interest. Number one, we want to make sure they own the home.
But no interest is still a level of interest.
Exactly, right? But that kind of speaks to a previous point. That point, exactly.
True story. Wait, true story. So you guys will actually, you have your conference coming up, by the way, which you all should attend. I'm telling you, this is not just home improvement, anyone, seriously, because it's just great training, and I will be there, right? But you were also looking to hire maybe Grant Cardone, and then you saw the podcast. He said, "What the heck, right?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were close. Nate sent the podcast over to me and said, "You should watch this first before we sign on the dotted line." Now here we are with you. So
unbelievable. Okay, so anyway, where were we? I just couldn't resist. You know, I was like,
yeah. But yeah, so our salespeople, they get very limited information. They'll get the address of the home, the names of the customers, the product that they're interested in with a brief description of the project. So for windows, for example, it'll say customer interested in 10 windows and a patio door.
Is it mostly window? What is it typically? Is there like there are 2 or 3 top sellers that make up 90% of your business, or
bath, window replacement, basement remodeling, some roofing, some siding.
Okay.
But mostly
Really,
high margin, quick turn.
It's applicable to anything. It's all about creating differentiation. So whatever product you sell, roofing, siding, we even dealt with waterproofing. You can create differentiation in your company. Why are you different? Why are you better than everyone else? What's different about your products that you sell? You know, that's what people don't do, is they don't really go through and explain why they're different, and then they're not building any value.
Sure.
So yeah.
Any in-home sales, any in-home service could be, applicable to our program. It's amazing how terrible they are, right? They can barely show up to their appointment on time, let alone prepared with a sales process to follow.
Got it.
So it's easy for us because we're competing with individuals who aren't professional to begin with.
Let's start at the top. So it's 10 steps, right? What's step 1?
Introduction. So that's kind of what you're describing, the introduction at the door. And we even explained prior to the intro, obviously preparing for a lead, the way you're dressed, your mindset, getting a workout in, eating right, getting enough sleep, all that stuff, leading up to getting to the appointment on time, obviously being a very important factor. And I talk about getting there, getting organized, mentally visualizing the entire appointment ahead of time. So almost like a meditation moment.
Got it.
But we preach getting there on time. So we talk about introduction at the door. We actually have scripted intros that take you intro at the door. Once you get into the house, what do you say? Once you get to the kitchen table, exactly, a script.
So is that the goal? So where would the first step end when you get to the kitchen table, and that would start step 2 is intelligence gathering?
Yeah, so you sit at the table. We have a formal introduction we deliver when they're seated at the table, and you have the customer's undivided attention. And the whole point of this intro is to get them to be comfortable and relax, because the whole thing is we want the customer's guard to be down.
Sure.
Because they're not going to be open-minded to sit there and listen to us give them a lecture if their guard's up.
So if you give me just a quick synopsis, the first thing that you would say when you walk up and knock on someone's door, what would it be? Just,
Well, the first thing we want to make sure we're doing is getting on a first-name basis right away. So, and I like the way you explain that. I want to talk to the customer like how to respectfully greet a friend,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
So, but we say the customer's first name first in question form. So I'd say Jordan. And the reason why is I want to make sure I'm talking with the correct person,
right?
But I want to get on a first name basis right away. And I say, hello, Jordan. My name's Dominic with Grosso University. I'd like to thank you for inviting us to your home here today. I'm actually here for a 10 o'clock appointment. May I come in? Great. So it's a very simple intro at the door.
So every single person that works, you better do that, right? I could not agree with you more. Because why not?
Yeah.
Right? Why reinvent the wheel? It works. It's elegant. It makes sense. It's respectful, right? So that's what they say. So they all walk in with this sort of, and they dress how? Suit and tie or casual?
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Name patch? What's the, I always say this big misconception of what represents like the best dress code. It's like every industry has its own best dress code, right? Yeah. Like, you don't want the home of someone with a 3-piece suit. You're like, oh, what's going to charge you for that suit, right? So you want to almost be like the very clean cut, almost like, I guess, is there a uniform with a name patch and stuff like that?
There can be. I mean, we have logo apparel that they wear, polo shirts, but it's a little more casual than it used to be. It used to be the full suit years ago.
Yeah.
And there's still companies that do it that way, but oftentimes, like you mentioned, the customers kind of put off by that.
Yeah.
You'd rather be on their level,
Yeah.
especially in the Midwest where we're from, where it's a little more casual.
Got it.
We have lanyards they wear, identification. People are asking for that nowadays when someone approaches their door.
Makes sense. All right. So when does that step end? When you get to the table, that's when that step kind of ends. Do you make it that formalized? Like with step one ends when you get to the table, and then you have a transition into that, which would be, okay, so great. So now let me tell you a bit about what we do here.
Step has a transition. And one thing that we dive in deep into our content that I think a lot of people don't train enough on is overcoming difficult situations, these curveball situations that customers will throw at you. Because we always say, believe it or not, they're not going to roll out the red carpet for you every time you walk into the door. So the intro at the door, some people don't want to let you in. How do you overcome that curveball at the door? Like, hey, we're just not interested right now.
No interest is interest.
Yeah, no interest is interest. But how do you overcome that, right? So we have basically program rebuttals and responses to overcome all the curveballs that they'll run into as well. So for example, you walk in the home and the customer says, hey, Jordan, if your window's over $200 a window, we can terminate this conversation. How do you overcome that, right?
Right.
So our reps are geared with all the ammunition for that too.
Right.
Yeah, or they're putting you on a time clock the minute you walk in the door. We usually try to get both parties, husband and wife, there for the appointment so that we can adequately present to both of them. Naturally, part of the prerequisite for the appointment is that we have them both there, both deciding parties. You mentioned earlier what were the prerequisites of a good lead.
Sure.
Having them both there is
Decision
important.
makers present, right?
But
What's
when we
really-
train, go ahead.
What's really different about the system is that it's true salesmanship. We talk about the difference between order taking and are you an order taker or a salesperson?
Right.
So a lot of times our guys walk in the house and there's really not a whole lot of interest. There might be some thought about doing the windows maybe 5 years down the road. So how do you take someone from a little bit of interest to 3 hours later writing a check for 20 grand?
Sure.
And that's a system we have that we've really perfected.
Sure. So in the case of someone let's get specific here, a little granular. So if someone said to you, if it's over $200 window, we might as well just end the what would you say to that?
Yeah, so it sounds like budget's very important to you, and the good thing is we have a good, better, best system that will show you. So we'll show you the $200 windows. We'll show you some.
Wow,
some
that's
of the
exactly. We have things that fit all different price
Yeah,
ranges.
exactly.
Okay.
So
So we're on
we'll-
the same page as I would have said.
So what we need to do is sit down, see what you want to have done, need to have done, and then we'll see what the best solution
Sound
is
good?
for you.
Great.
Fair enough?
We never sell our way out of an opportunity.
Then the reasonable man tone comes out. Sound fair enough?
Yeah. You guys know the straight line. That's awesome. No, it's perfect. No, I love this. Okay, so now we're at the table. How do you transition? So the greeting is over, right? You get to the table. What's the first thing you say at the table?
So once again, we'd like to thank you for allowing us into your home. We really appreciate the opportunity. And obviously, we'd love to get together and earn your business while we're here. However, the real goal of this meeting is just to give you information on our products and services. So we feel that the best consumer is educated, which is why the price I actually work up for you today, Jordan, will actually be good for 1 full year, so you can relax. And we'll also take a little bit of time over here to make you aware of any promotions we have going on currently. So if and when you're ready to move forward with the project, you have all the information you need to feel comfortable with your decision.
Great.
We feel that's a much more comfortable way of doing
So you
business.
take the pressure off. Okay, excellent, right? I love this so far. All great, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they say, okay, great, sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Then you say, so great. So then you ask a question.
Then
which
we go
is-
into our needs analysis, which
Okay.
is step 2, our survey needs analysis,
Okay.
which is obviously crucial. So
And
ga-
what would be the
gathering-
typically first question?
So we get into there, we want to figure out how we got there. Why are we here, right? So were we referred by somebody?
Oh, do they know? Does the salesman know the source of the referral?
Usually.
Okay.
They do, but we'll ask
But they'll
who referred you to
reconfirm.
our company,
Yeah,
implying
Act
that
as
you're
if
referred.
everyone's a referral, yeah.
Got it. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So you just say, hey, most of the people I meet with referred to us, word of mouth, repeat business. I'm just curious, Jordan, were you also referred by somebody? How did we get here today?
Yeah. Okay. Got
And
it.
then they'll tell you. So whether it's a TV, and sometimes they had a neighbor down the road that did a bath with us, right?
Sure.
And then, of course, we want to really talk about layering. So now getting into step 2, which these guys really hammer as well, is it has to be a conversation, not interrogation. So I'm not sitting there drilling them question after question, right, until they fall over.
You're the trusted advisor, not the grand inquisitor.
Correct, yeah. So that's something we really preach on is making conversational. We talk about a form method of communication, learn about their family, their occupation, what they do for recreation, motivation, all that stuff.
Right.
And just really learning as much as we can about this person, because ultimately that'll help me tailor my presentation accordingly.
Okay. And do you have parameters in place of how far you will let the salesman go into their personal life? Do they play the game of like, oh my God, you like this, I love that, and they, is there sort of a time limit thing here? You try to keep them moving forward, or do you encourage them to go very deep into personal stuff?
So very similar to the way you preach it is rapport is building throughout the presentation.
Right.
So we
It's not
talk about,
constant, yeah.
it's important to sprinkle that in, but we got to stay on track.
Got it.
And the nice thing about our process, it allows you to do that very easily. So you can stay on track because, again, we have a finite amount of time when we're there.
Yeah. How long is a typical appointment?
2.5, 3 hours
Okay.
to fully consummate a sale.
Okay. And all right, yeah. So in other words, so I guess this comes when you is it this 3 weeks of training before they're allowed to go out into the field? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess during that time you do a lot of role playing back and forth, a lot of critical incident scenarios, right? Put them in, mock sales and see how they react. Okay, right.
Training's ongoing too. A lot of observation, shadowing the guys, riding with them, watching them in the house. Because naturally in the classroom, you're training on all these like blue sky, perfect world scenarios. And then you get out there and you're hitting with all the curveballs.
Sure.
So a lot of it's in the field too and ongoing really.
Do you have so I guess so you have a list of required questions basically, right? And so you organize from big picture to small picture, and then is there like a last question that you ask? Like is there a first question and a last question? I know you can see in reality, no matter how hard you can't script out the whole thing because there's a lot of reacting and based on what they say, you ask follow-up questions, right? But is there like sort of a pathway like the last question is there a last question that they or
well, every needs analysis is different.
Yeah.
But and the thing is we have a structured survey that they bring into the home, actually put pen to paper.
Sure.
However, I always tell my salespeople, you got to let it flow naturally. So sometimes the last question on the survey will come up early, and you have to let the conversation unfold.
Let me put it differently. Is there certain once I know these 4 or 5 or 3 things, I can move forward, right? So what are those things that you need to know before you move forward?
Yeah, so the big thing is obviously what their primary goals are for the project. What are some of the key motivations for them to do their pain points, right? I need to get their hot buttons out on the table. Now, in home improvements, as I've found, they're not going to openly and tell you that. A lot of times we have to dig it out, sure, right? So the way our survey is engineered, the way it's designed is to extract that stuff from them. But again, it's not necessarily in a proper order. But if I know what their goals are for the home improvement project, what their pain points are, what their buying motivations will be, what they're looking for, the benefits, that'll allow me to tailor my presentation accordingly. For example, on windows, I'll figure out in the survey or needs analysis how truly important energy efficiency is to that prospect. And if energy efficiency is their primary motive, I'm going to show them the most energy efficient window they've ever seen in their life. Now, some people don't give a crap about efficiency. All they want is more security in their home. So now I'm going to demonstrate the most secure replacement window they've ever seen in their life. So that allows me to tailor my demo accordingly.
And we're smoking out the objections during that needs assessment. Really, I mean, it's a tool to know what obstacles we're going to face as we move through our process. So it's a subtle way of getting those objections out early so we can start to, eliminate them as we go. And then in the end, closing the sale is more natural.
And how about the financial aspect of the equation? Do you qualify? I assume most of it's done through taking out second mortgages or
it's all unsecured.
It used to be that way a little bit, but now it's more unsecured lines of credit.
But then is it mostly though lines of credit that they take or people pay cash for this stuff? It's mostly borrowed.
Well, part of what we train on which is the big key of what we do, is selling financing.
Right,
because a lot of consumers, we don't make money on it.
Oh, really?
It's only, and it actually costs us money as a company. But basically, the better you can sell the financing, and it's not something most consumers don't jump up and say, I want to finance. Usually early on in the survey, they'll tell us, if we ask them, are you thinking of financing or cash? A lot of times they'll say cash, but they don't know what the price is. So they may be thinking the windows are going to be $5,000, and they end up being 20. So a big key of what we train on is how do you sell financing? How do you get them comfortable with it? Which is a process. So
and does that come up at what point what step? That's not in step 2 though, right?
We
when you
touch on
start
it.
seeding it, do you start seeding it?
Well, especially because sometimes a customer will blurt out the reason they called is because I saw you have 60 month interest refinancing going on right now, and that's why I called. So certainly at that point, I want to extract more information, maybe even figure out more of a monthly investment that they know would work for them.
Right.
So basically, we phrase it in a way where obviously I don't want to waste your time showing you things that are out of your comfort zone financially. I know that interest rate is important to you. I find a lot of our customers, when they do budget plans like this, they like to be somewhere between $200 to $300 a month. If and when you do this, is that a range that would work for you, right? And then we know a target that we know we can make it affordable.
Makes sense.
We're anticipating financing, I do a lot of basement remodeling. Average ticket could be $50,000 to $100,000. So It's a big 80% of our customers are financing. We're a merchant for multiple lenders. So we have sort of a tiered waterfall system where we can get just about anyone a loan, as long as they have a pulse.
What's the flaw? 500 on the credit score? What's the?
Yeah, mid fives. I'd say is kind of bottom out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So when you're how typical needs analysis is what? How long? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, every situation is different. I'd say 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how the conversation's going.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have your transition into your solution phase. What comes next?
And I just want to touch one more thing on the inspection. One thing that's important for companies to know that we really preach on is you can see almost exactly how that lead was ran by how the survey's filled out. Because you'll see a lot of reps, they'll go like 0 for 10, right? They won't close leads 10 times in a row, and then you see all their surveys are blank. So they're basically half-assed in the survey, and they're not putting pen to paper and truly listening to what that prospect really needs.
The roadmap to the close.
Yeah, it's a roadmap to the close. It's like gold in the home. You get the survey filled out in its entirety. So you can see where a sales rep's cutting corners. So that's why it's a really nice tool for salespeople to gather information, but for management to see, is this guy truly running this lead properly?
Is the so I find surveys as awesome tools because they're cheat sheets for salespeople to follow the roadmap, because it's like it appears that you filling it out, but it also tells you what questions you got to ask. So it gives them the comfort. It's almost like they have the script in front of them in the form of a survey, right? Do you have this? Is it on an iPad or is it just a handwritten thing?
Yeah, so it's kind of a combination. We're moving more to technology, but most of it is handwritten, pen to paper. So it helps make it. For me, it helps retention for the salespeople to actually write that information down.
Okay.
I think it's more psychological too, right? I mean, what salespeople have a hard time listening, and asking good questions. So we really make it so that it's dummy proof for them to know what good questions to ask. And then, it's kind of old fashioned, but writing things down and looking people in their eye and nodding your head.
Listen, I was in the mortgage industry. I trained a zillion salesmen there, and my whole thing was opening up my thing, writing stuff down, and
I want it to look like
connection
graffiti.
that goes on right there. I totally get it. But I always think it's like the greatest cheat sheet for a salesperson is to have their form to fill out, because it's almost like for compliance reasons. They have to, and it gives them the sort of the roadmap for their intelligence gathering, right? So when they're done with gathering intelligence, their needs analysis, right? They know everything they need to know. Your next step is?
Measure and inspection.
Got it. So this is now specific to your industry. You say, great, well, based on what you said, so how would you so you say, okay, great, well, based on what you said, next step would be, let me just see, what you got, right? Give me the words.
One thing you really hammer on in your training is creating urgency. And that's really what the inspection process is all about. So we talk about the cycle of motivation. So the reason why you're there is because the prospect has a problem. Doesn't necessarily mean they're aware of how bad the problem is or how many problems they have in their
They're probably in
house.
denial also. If they have a problem, they get used to it, like, whatever. Yeah, drafts aren't that bad. Or, the fact that I'm playing 30% more of election, not that, whatever. Everyone, right? So you want to wake that denial up, right?
Yeah, so the beautiful part about the inspection is it's really one of the big opportunities where a sales rep can start to take control of the situation. So we talk about in our training, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. So of course the thermostat is going to control the environment, regulate the environment around. The thermometer is responsive.
I like that.
So we got sales reps that'll go, for example, on a window lead, and they'll sell them $20,000 in bathroom renovating, and it has to do with the inspection because
I'm going to steal that from you.
There you go.
To steal that from you?
Sure.
I love that.
I appreciate that. As long as you give me a shout out.
I like that. That's a good way of explaining it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we talk about the cycle of motivation. So cycle motivation is problem first at the very top. It's a circular thing. You're there because the customer has a problem. Well, just because they have a problem doesn't mean they're aware of how bad it is. So the real big part of our inspection process is creating pain or trauma in terms of how bad the condition of their windows are, their bath, their basement leaks, their roofing leaking, their siding falling apart. Because very few homeowners go through their house with a fine-tooth comb.
Sure.
So I always ask, like Jordan, for example, your house. Can you tell me the exact condition of every single window in your house right now? Honestly? Probably not, right?
So in other words, they might have called you for one window, but you're going to do a free home inspection and make sure that it's like a health check of their entire home.
Correct.
To make sure everything is copacetic. And on that inspection, you'll probably find But I've done this with plumbing companies, and it works incredibly well. So is that the system?
Yeah, for
And it's
example,
ethical too, because why not? As long as you're there, you might as well do it, right?
one thing Nathan always says is the customers are never going to get excited about replacing one window, and we certainly didn't drag our asses out of bed to drive that prospect's house to sell one window.
Sure.
So we're always aiming for the whole house.
Yeah.
That's the real goal of the whole thing. So we always want to make it seem like a benefit to the customer, like you talk about a health inspection, but we want the customers to come with us for that inspection. So it's very important that when we do inspection on their bath, their basement, their roof, it doesn't really matter what it is, the prospect is with us for the inspection. So we can educate them on what's going on with their windows. We do a very detailed inspection on the condition, the performance. For example, in baths, we really get into there with moisture meters. We have black lights. We have magnifying digital Wi-Fi microscopes. We have all these
You guys are like
gadgets.
the NCI, like the police inspectors, right? Forensic, right?
I think of it like a doctor going in to perform surgery, right? He's got to have the right tools to do his job. That's kind of what we do. So our guys are well prepared with all the tools that go in. But the main goal of the measure inspection is create urgency about doing the work.
So give me an example of something that, would be a typical person that didn't have urgency in the beginning, and what would you find and how would you position that to create urgency?
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll find issues with like mold or mildew. Let's say I'm doing a bath inspection. I got a moisture meter. It measures the moisture content behind a wall. Now on the surface, Jordan, you may think your shower's in perfect condition.
Sure.
But then I show you that behind your wall, there's 100% moisture. Now, if there's moisture behind your wall, what do you think's growing back there?
Mold, yeah.
Yeah.
And it might be black mold, which is dangerous. It's right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they'll think of it that's linked to their seasonal allergies or chronic sinusitis.
Sure.
It's linked to their asthma problems or shortness of breath.
And are you seeding those things in the needs analysis?
A little bit, yeah. A lot of times that comes
If you're
out
not,
in
you
the
should
survey.
definitely be doing that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It comes out early on, especially if it is a pain point when we get there. But a lot of times they don't know about it until we point it out. Like sometimes customers will say, there's nothing wrong with my windows. And then we go and inspect them, and there's literally like a jungle of mold and mildew flooring in there. Yeah. And you can't open them. They're painted shut.
Got it.
So yeah, people make new decisions on new information. That's where we really educate them on the true condition of their home.
Do they follow you around for this inspection?
They must, yeah. Because it's going to be very difficult for me to make them aware of the problems if they're not present for the inspection.
We try to involve them, get them involved, have them participate if possible.
A big thing what we do that ties back into the intro in a sense is the trust and rapport factor. So we talk about, we're going to give you a price today that's good for 1 year to kind of set them at ease. And that ties into the inspection because now they're more open-minded to looking at more windows rather than just looking at the one window. Okay. We're here for your future consideration.
So which I like the strategy. That is a certain point though, when you sort of offset that, while this is good for you, if you act now, we'll give you a discount today.
We're gonna get to that later.
No, I'm saying that's how you wrap it the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. But early on,
just anticipating the closing.
Yep. Yeah, we just want to make sure their guard's down the whole time.
I agree. That alone makes 1,000. Listen, it's very similar to when you say to someone like, "Listen, reason for the call today, Sean. I just want to send you some information and then get back to you down the road." And then if the qualification session goes great, oh, by the way, basically, right now I have, so their guard comes down and allows you to do your job more effectively here. So what you're doing is you're saying, hey, the price is good for a year, but then at the very end, why not offer them a fast action bonus or something like that, right?
Going back to your question, Jordan, about the one window.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's a defense mechanism. They may think they might want other windows in the future. And that's sort of like, I just want the one window. I just want the bedroom windows. Right. How do you open them up to measuring the rest of the windows or inspecting them? And part of that early on is not kicking them into fight or flight. So that's where the price being good for a year comes in.
Sure.
It's all psychological.
Makes sense.
In the end, hopefully in the end, they want to buy from you, and the close is easy.
So how long does a typical inspection take? Is it a 20-minute process, 30 minutes?
That can vary dramatically, obviously, depending on
the
size of the project. But I'd say usually 20 minutes to sometimes an hour, depending on how big the project is. And
we're somewhere probably at a 1 hour mark, 50 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes here when you're done with the home inspection, right? So
it's case by case. I'd say more often than not, if I'm talking about the first 3 steps, I'm in the house maybe 35, 40 minutes before those first 3 steps are fully consummated.
Depends on if they let you leave, right?
Yeah, right.
If you do a great job, then you might be there all day because the homeowner doesn't want you to leave. And then you've built the right rapport.
Yeah, especially they're cooking you dinner.
Then you can move on to the basement.
But I would sell people's homes.
Yeah.
I would say that probably at least a third of the time, they'd be making me dinner by the time I left and calling their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very common for me. You know, they really you get into really tight rapport with people, and if you really if you're like, if you can get your point across in a way that doesn't alienate them, it's like that trusted advisor. And that's such an important thing in your industry, that they don't come off as the grand inquisitor. Because as soon as that happens, you're done. It breaks rapport. They view you as the enemy versus someone's really like the family doctor, the financial planner, the home health planner for the house, so to speak, right? So that's the key positioning for your people, right?
Funny thing about time in the home, we talk about that because when we say 2 to 3 hours, a lot of people think, wow, that's a lot of time. If you do it the right way, they should look down at their watch and say, wow, I can't believe you've been here 3 hours. And one analogy we give, actually, because we have the Wolf of Wall Street poster in the back of our sales training room.
Right.
I always give the example of, that movie was pretty lengthy.
3 hours,
and when it got down to the end, I was hoping it was going to continue because I liked it so much.
Yeah.
So we give that example as if you're doing a great job, they shouldn't even notice that you're there for 2 to 3 hours.
So after you're done with the inspection, right? Then you have a transition into what, the solution now?
Yeah, so one thing he actually mentioned that is very important is we want to get tie downs and commitments on a lot of important steps in the process. So one thing I don't want to try to overcome in closing is procrastination, because they say most people would start a procrastination club, they just don't get around to it, right? But homeowners, if there's no urgency or no commitment to do the work, then it doesn't really matter if the price is good or not, right? The today only won't work as good.
Sure.
So I want to get them committed that they're definitely going to be getting this project done. So we train to get a tie down on the customer. So Jordan, I can definitely see why I'm here, and I'm sure you'd agree, whether it be with us or any of our fine competition, getting these windows, this bath, or this basement is something you definitely need sooner rather than later, true? And then I shake his hand and say, I appreciate the opportunity to help you with that. Right? So you get a handshake commitment on they're definitely doing something with this project.
Sure.
Then I can move on to step 4, being the company story. Now I'm going to educate them on who we are and how we can help them solve their problems.
Right. Mm-hmm. And is there any in the initial greeting, when you first walk in, is there any mention of the company at all before that? Is there like it's like when they walk in, do they talk about the company at all? Like this, because you have this interesting spot. So like they walk in, there's like 30 seconds to a minute that takes to get to the table. Then there's like some chit chat that happens as you transition into intelligence gathering. Is there any mention of, let me tell you about my company there, or is strategically
We
avoided?
don't do any selling early on, in a sense. I mean, there's a little bit here and there in terms of.
I don't mean selling, just saying, let me just tell you a bit about my company.
It ties into the company because, it's a funnel system. Early on, we're gathering information, we're building rapport, trust, want, and need, which in a sense, that's kind of selling them on why replace your windows, why do your bathroom, but we're not selling them on our company. We're not selling them on our product
So
yet.
is it avoided? Is it strategically avoided on the way in? Like, you won't bring anything up. Do you have multiple companies, by the way, depending on the product, or is it always the same company? Like, do you have different divisions, different names, based
Different
on
divisions.
Different division.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically the way we kind of spin it is before we go ahead and try to sell you on who we are and our products and services, let's make sure we can do the work. Sure. Let's make sure that we're a good fit for you.
Okay.
And we always are, but we want to make it as if...
And
hey,
understand what they're looking for in the company they desire to choose. That's
So what you would do here, and that's, so notice, after you're done with your inspection, right, and you've gotten the necessary tie downs, you've ratcheted up some pain points. Hopefully, you create some urgency there as well, right? Then the next step would be, before you actually start building out the solution, you're going to talk. Well, let me just first, before I show you what we can do, let me just tell you a bit about what we do, tell you about our company, and
So it's a very simple transition. I always ask us, hey, Jordan, let me ask you, what do you know about our company? And they say, oh, I've seen it around, but not a whole lot. I tell you what, let's just take a few minutes to explain why more than 40,000 families like yours have trusted us for their home improvements. Fair enough? And then you use your reasonable man tone. Right? But one thing I want to talk, and I don't want to take too many steps back, but in the inspection, you talk about running parallel movies, right? The negative and the positive one. And that's, the inspection is a point where you can really do that, is start to get them to visualize, future pace them on how this is going to be solving this problem. And we start getting them excited about the changes and getting them to design, because a lot of the stuff we do is custom, customized for their specific wants and needs. So we start to get them to run those parallel, the positive movie in their mind on solving this pain point now.
Is some of it the aesthetics of it also? Like it's going to look beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're redoing a basement, especially, right? Your family, you can, oh my God, there's all the memories you're going to. So it's that aspect of it. Okay.
Yeah, you can definitely talk on the basement side. It's very emotional. You got to build
Yeah, of course, right.
Get the visuals on the table, get them looking through photos. When we're trying to buy time, that's what we hit on hard on the basement side, is getting them to visualize, like Dominic's saying, in their mind, taking ownership of that new space, getting them excited about it. I think some salespeople in our industry take for granted, they think because they're there at the person's house, that they're definitely going to do that project. And we have to take a step back first and build the desire before selling to them makes any sense at all.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So you'll have your obviously a preset, chunk of info you give them about your company, right? And how long is that? Is it
usually 30 to 40 minutes is a good, robust company story.
Oh, you go, wow. So 30-minute.
Yeah, because the biggest thing, at least for me, that I train my guys on, I want them to extract any previous bad experiences they've had with contractors historically, and I want to get that.
They probably
out of
had
them.
some because there's a lot of right.
Because if I don't get it out of them in the company story and empathize with them and sympathize all that stuff, then it's going to be an objection in the close that I don't want to have to deal with. Because it'll be like, I appreciate everything you're saying, but last time we hired the first contractor that we met with, we got burned, and we're not going to do it again. We got to do our research.
So you spend 30 minutes telling them about your company.
Yep.
What's the bulk of that time spent talking about the history, how it started? Is it the growth of the company? Is it about, or are you telling them stories about other people you've done jobs for just like them in the before? And is it before and after?
A lot of what we're doing is going through our credentials, what makes us different, why are we different than everyone else. But a lot of times it's talking about things that a lot of contractors take for granted. Take, for example, insurance, having the right form of insurance, the right amount of insurance. Why is that important? What happens if you don't go with a contractor that's not insured? What happens at that point? And Dom can get more into that. But literally it's taking anything you could think of that's different about your company. Customer service, accreditations, Better Business Bureau rating, So our companies are nationally ranked. We're actually ranked 25th in the U.S. in terms of overall remodeling companies.
Awesome.
So that's something we can talk about, obviously.
Okay. So when you're, and then, so that's about 30-minute chunk of content there?
We're asking a lot of questions too. At the point. It's not really like we're
talking.
talking.
So it's more,
They're doing most of the talking.
Interactive.
Yeah.
Give me an example of some of the questions you would ask during that time frame.
Yeah. So, for example, let's talk about being licensed, right? So, Jordan, let me ask you a question. If you're having a contractor come in and tearing your house apart, why would it be important to you that contractor's licensed?
Right.
Why would that be important to you? And I want him to share that. Right. So, let me ask you a question. What could happen to you if you had an unlicensed contractor tear your house apart and bail? What do you think could happen to you in the long run?
Okay, so it's not a traditional. I get it. So you're not spending 30 minutes just telling them about.
And then we throw a third-party story in there. Sure. So let me share a story with you about a customer I met with, and then
it could be as simple as saying, "Share with me what you're looking for in the contract."
Yeah.
Tell me about your experiences. Looks like you remodeled your kitchen recently, and they'll go on for an hour, telling you everything that you need to know. So
it's almost a secondary intelligence gathering session as well as right.
Oh, very much. Yeah.
Part of it's creating, in a sense, fear, which is true, because what happens if you do go with the wrong contractor? They don't do it right. They go out of business. They take your money, which is very common in our industry. And that should be something they're aware of. There's so many fly-by-night companies when it comes to remodeling. So by taking that time and differentiating that, they're getting that, which is important for them to have that education of what to look for.
I'm thinking, the interesting thing is that I can see why in this industry, it's almost like you are the product. The company is almost the product because it's a service being performed. It's almost like the first 10. It's really not, but it almost is in a sense. As much as the windows themselves, it's because it's the job you're doing, the installation. So there's a crucial aspect of the sale here.
Yeah, because we talk about the thing that's unique about our industry is we're selling an unfinished good. It's something that's not even made yet.
Right.
So you could have the best basement system, the best windows in the world. If it's not installed right, it's not going to do you any good. So
and there's a lot of negative anchors people have towards home improvement because there's a lot of bad characters in the industry, right?
The trust factor has to be off the charts with contractors.
Okay, good. So then when you're done with the company, then you transition into the actual solution or?
Yeah, so we get into what we call the evolution part. And again, just like we talked about with the inspection, before we end any step, we need to make sure we're getting commitments from that prospect, right?
So what would be the commitment you'd ask for there?
So I say, Jordan, let me ask you, are there any more questions you have about Grosso University I can answer for you at this time? And they usually say, oh no, you're very thorough, almost to a fault, right? And can you now appreciate why more than 40,000 families like yours have selected us for their home improvement needs?
So you call Grosso University?
Just as an example.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just as an example, yeah. Just for the sake of the interview. Yeah, that's okay. So we basically say, can you now appreciate why more than 40,000 families like you have selected us for their home improvement needs? And then I get even a stronger commitment because, again, you talk about the 310s, right? Sure. The company is a big one.
Yeah, here especially.
Yeah, right, especially in the home improvement. So I get even deeper because the worst thing they can say is no, but I always ask, if I can design a dream bath you absolutely love and exceed your expectations on affordability so far, would we have earned the right to ask for your business?
Right.
And then if they say yes to that, guess what I'm getting? I appreciate the opportunity to help you with that. So I get a commitment. Now the company, there's a nail in the coffin. The company's over. There's no more research they have to do on us. They're comfortable with me. Now I need to kill the competition and, of course, funnel it down to our product or nothing. So the next step 5, is evolution. Basically, we're killing the competition now. Because there are a million options out there for everything we do, and we need to educate them on what those options are, because I want to fulfill their need to shop around, get other estimates, and kill the competition.
How many people are dealing with multiple contracts? All of them, they're all shopping around? Is it very shopping, or some people just...
It's competitive. I mean, mind you, at this point in the process, we've brought in samples as well. So our reps have a whole trunk full of product samples they'll bring into the home. They're going to start putting things into the customer's hands. This is when it gets fun for the homeowner. Like Dom said, we take them on a shopping spree and satisfy their appetite to see the different options that are out there.
You know, what's interesting in the industry, though, Jordan, is that most contractors go in and really don't have a process. They don't go over this information. I've had several companies come out to my home recently. I just bought a new home, and it's hard to get them out. It's hard to get them to respond to an inquiry, much less give you a written proposal, much less go over the product or the company story.
Yeah, they don't educate.
So the thing we're communicating is, what if you took your company or maybe an entrepreneur out there that looks at the opportunity, because the industry is so frankly half-assed. These people go in, they leave an estimate on the back of a business card, and they don't build any value in their company or their product. So what we're doing is the exact opposite. We're taking the time, showing the customer why we're different, why we're better, and then having a lot more profitable sale as well.
Yeah, we have a saying, first one in, last one in. You know, first one in, last one in. We, you know, they're always usually collecting bids or quotes, or they're vetting out multiple options. We try to be the first one in and the last one in, you know, and make it so that we're not really competing with anyone.
It's actually a massive opportunity for people that can truly grasp the sales system, because so many of our competition is so poor and weak that it's just a giant opportunity.
Bubba in the truck.
So now that takes us to step number 6 or 7? 6 now, I think.
Yeah, product presentation.
Evolution, you're killing the competition, right?
Yeah, and following down to our product. And then step 6 is the product presentation, where now that the only product on the table is ours, we're going to basically convince them now why ours is going to be the ideal solution to their problems. And that's what it's really all about. Because how much would you pay for a product that doesn't solve any of your problems? Right. The answer is nothing, right? And how long do you want those problems solved for? For 1 year, 2 years, or how about forever? So that we basically educate them on why our product will solve all those pain points more effectively than any other system. And we always say the best close in the world is a masterful presentation. Because when you do a masterful presentation, the customer says 3 things, and that's I want it, I want it, I want it. If they want it bad enough, not even money will get in the way of them obtaining it. So
how long is the presentation typically?
Again, depending on what product you're selling, it could go on for an hour, it could go on for 2 hours, depending on what you're doing. I don't know on the basement side. There's obviously a lot of variables.
They're in there for about 5 hours.
Yeah, 5 hours, yeah.
Because they're designing a whole basement. So we do a design build with a one-call close model. Same system, obviously, but that could be a 5-hour long point.
Dom's the master.
When you spend that much time in someone's place, they always feel compelled to buy now, because there's a reciprocity involved. You wasted your time there. So, when you put that much time in, if you've done the right thing, the customer has this little unconscious marker, so to speak.
Well, they get in their own way, right? Because the reason why our industry has such a bad reputation is because of unmet expectations. Yeah. The homeowner has something in there. They envision that they're buying a certain solution. The contractor comes out to fulfill that obligation, and there's all these disconnects. So, we think it's to the customer's best interest to spend that time. But we have to get them interested in that They want us in and out. Give me your best price. They think we're there to bid on it, and then 5 hours later, we're having dinner and drinks, celebrating the new.
So next step now. After that, step 7 now.
I just want to mention one thing. Dom's really the master when it comes to developing product demos. I mean, we all have done it, myself, my brother, but he's built an amazing demo. He could go on for 4 hours. But part of what we can train on is if you don't have that product now, or how do you build that type of demo that's really going to blow them out of the water and build that differentiation?
Yeah, so we actually have a specific formula to deliver a master presentation. So the first one is differentiation, like we all talk about. So we just say price only becomes a determining factor when you fail to differentiate. I think that was a Brian Tracy quote, right? So you got to differentiate your product. You also have to price condition. So these customers have to understand they're going to have to spend significantly more money than they initially expected on everything we do, because they're going to walk in, they're going to think they can get the windows for $200 a window or the bath done for $2,000.
Right.
And if we just blow them out of the water with this price at the end without price conditioning the right way, you're just going to get thrown out of houses left and right.
So, okay, no, love it, makes total sense. I think one of the interesting things here that comes through is that not just in your industry, what I find a lot with sales training programs is that they're not real world. They're not rooted in reality. They're not actually working. I know, like with the straight line system, like it's being used actively all over. I mean, your system that you use here, which by the way shares so much in common with it, right? It's actually being used right now by salespeople all over the country, concentration in the Midwest, and they're making some serious money here, right? And I don't want to get specific in income claims here, right? Because we don't want to. But what's just the general range you think that someone that was a really motivated person, and I know you train salespeople, right? So it's not really. Do you want experienced people, or you're looking for just hungry, young, or any age or you want experienced salespeople?
I say give me a person with the right attitude, work ethic, and mental toughness, and I'll turn them into a $2 to $3 million salesperson. Yeah. So sales experience is good sometimes, but it's not always a requirement.
Would that be $2 million? So a top closer could earn $2 million a year? Or
no, that's
gross $2 million.
That's what their sales volume.
And what type of commission would that result to a ballpark?
On average, 10 to 12%.
Okay, so it's big money though.
It's multiple six-figure potential easily if you're remotely following our process. Multiple six-figure income is very easily attainable.
So now after the product demonstration, what would come next?
That's where we get into the closing sequence and kind of what I was going to wrap up about our product presentation, the formula. So we got price condition, differentiation. We also have, we call it like Zig Ziglar, what's in it for me, what's in it for the prospect, the WIIFM. So you can say how your product's different or unique, but what's the benefits to them? Why do they care? Why are they listening to you talk about it, right? So make sure it's relevant to a problem they're looking to solve. And then we need to get a trial close from that prospect that they would never accept a solution without that feature or benefit. That's definitely something they desire if and when they do this.
Give me an example.
So for example, knowing what you now know about the different types of vinyl frames out there, would you invest in the cheap recycled plastic, the bulky virgin vinyl that's reducing 30% of your glass, or do you feel it's worth it to you to go with our exclusive advanced polymer that's a true permanent solution that's going to solve all your problems? Which one makes the most sense for you? And then they say, well, I want the polymer. And basically say, can I put these other competition away as an option for you? Or knowing what you now know. So basically we get those commitments. And then we emphasize exclusive. That's the key is, because they can get the same window down the road for $500 less. Why would they buy from me, right? So we emphasize exclusive. So that's the last part of the formula.
How would you do that?
So for example, the windows that we offer are true exclusive windows. Only we offer them in the whole country. And that's an important thing to have as a home improvement company is an exclusive offering. Whether branded
products. Branded products.
Yep, exactly. So that's the five basically facets to the formula is your price condition differentiation, what's in it for me, trial close, and exclusive. And that's how we build our presentations out. And our salespeople are getting those commitments on each of their main selling points. Then we get to the close, it's the natural conclusion to the appointment. We call it getting it to the green. So when we're in closing, we don't want to be playing army golf like I do, where it's like hitting it from one rough to the next, left, right, left. I'm not very good at golf, but they should be like tap it in more often than not. They should want to buy from you at this point. I shouldn't have to strong arm a person into a decision every
So
time.
the close is really more about totaling up what it's going to cost, laying out. Is it now? This is the financing now come into play here as part of the close.
Yep. So that's where we get into step 7 is getting into the closing sequence. So we call it our retail closes. And we have 3 major components to our retail closes. Because one thing we train our guys to do is get the nose out of the way. But again, I hate to keep going back and forth, but before we even get into closing, before we lay price down, we need to get powerful pre-closes from our prospects. Basically saying that affordability is the only thing standing in the way from moving forward, right? So we end the presentation on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate our solution? You talk about the 3
money
10s,
aside,
right?
basically. It's a money aside situation.
So we're trying to get the 10 on the product now, right? And most people say 11 or 12 at this point because they're blown out of the water.
Right.
And then we actually joke, only 11? I don't get a 13, right? So if you hear correctly, and I think I do, this is the product and we're the company you want for your home. Chicken nod, right? In that case, if we can make this affordable and truly fit into your budget, is there any reason we couldn't get you started?
Right.
So that's how we lead into the closing sequence. So basically, we've already funneled it down. Now affordability is the only thing standing in the way. And that's where the first part of closing is price delivery. Of course, effectively delivering the price. There's a strategy to it. We don't just say, okay, here you go, Jordan. So there's a proper thing. And you talk about this in your sales training. Before you drop the price, you need to make them aware of all the features and benefits of your product or service.
Right.
Because the customers only retain maybe 10% of what you told
The
them.
energy and benefits out. Right.
Yeah, we call it a features and benefits dump is what we do at the last, before we drop the bomb. And we actually do a little guessing game because that's our report card to see how good of a job we did. So before we deliver price, we always want to feel out where the prospect thinks this will cost. So we play a little guessing game. Now, knowing what you now know, I tell you what, Jordan, I'd love for you to be my guest at dinner this evening. As a matter of fact, if you're able to guess within $500, the total investment of the proposal I have here to get your dream bath, your basement done, will take you out to any fine dining establishment in the greater Los Angeles area, as long as it's a McDonald's or Wendy's.
Right.
So we basically play a little guessing game. We get both husband and wife to guess what they think it'll cost.
And typically they weigh low.
Well, it depends on how good of a job the salesperson did. And that's why this is important for the salesperson to do, because it tells you how effectively you did at price conditioning. So we say you should do a $40,000 demo for a $20,000 price. So if they're guessing significantly below your starting price, then you did a really shitty job price conditioning.
Typically, do they guess below? What's the typical?
If you do your job right, they should actually guess higher.
Yep, much higher.
And sometimes we'll remind them prior to laying down the price. Earlier we looked at, and we'll show them average pricing, industry published average pricing. We'll show them sometimes competitor quotes. So they have that knowledge.
So you give them some basis to make it.
Right,
guess.
for sure. We'll kind of remind them of
It's not
that.
like it's not like the Price is Right stuff with just like,
Yeah, it's an educated guess.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And they typically will come in higher?
If you do your job right, and we usually throw in some humor in there. How's your heart, Jordan? I want to make sure here, but basically, instead of apologizing for our price, we're actually bragging about it because we're giving them a much better product for the price and service.
Okay.
So,
And so they pick a number, and you say, "Wow, okay."
That would be nice. I love an optimist. It's pretty optimistic, Jordan. And then you get the other. So you want to kind of joke around like it's going to be significantly more. Even if they guess higher than my opening price, I want to make it seem it's like even higher than that. So the whole goal of doing this, the reason why we do it and play it up, is so then when I slide the offer over, they should be like, oh, you should see their body language tell you, okay, I'm actually a little relaxed now, his shoulders drop.
Got it.
Yeah, make it fun, not make it so intense. Just
Correct.
keep it light, keep it
have you been writing up that offer like the whole way, basically? So but when you're at that point, you already have it sort of calculated out. You already know what it is.
Sometimes you take a few minutes to price out the job after the presentation's over, and while you're pricing out the job, the
just talk with
customer.
them.
We have testimonial videos and actual stuff they can read in the meantime while we're working up the price.
So you slide over the price, and they're like, "Holy shit!" No.
Yeah, the good news is the great thing about our system is you don't have to think in closing because the roadmap's already laid out for you.
Step 8 now on.
Step 7 has numerous components. It has price delivery, financial terms, and return on investment.
Okay.
So the next step would be getting into financial terms.
Got it.
Now, as these guys do it, as we train it, no matter what the customer's response is to my price, I lead into financial terms the same way. So if I slide over my price, for example, give me a negative response.
Yeah. Wow. That's a bit more than I thought it would be.
Yeah, no problem, Jordan. I completely understand. Let me ask you, if and when you were to do something like this, how would you handle it? Is this something you take care of as a cash investment? Or is it something like most of our customers, you do a budget plan or
Yeah,
a
probably want to
Okay. Tell you what, Jordan, since I'm here anyway, let me just show you a few of our most popular budget plans. Just let me know if any work for you. Fair enough?
Yeah, sure. Good.
That's it.
And even that little,
Every cell the same.
Yeah.
Right down the line.
Yeah.
what's unique about that though, that we train on there, and Dom went through it fairly quickly, is that a lot of people get caught up right there because if the customer says cash, do they really have the money? You know, 80% of the time, probably they don't actually have the money. They're probably going to their own bank, or they're maybe going to.
If they say cash, you say, great, well, let me just, by the way, just so you know, let me just also show you the financing option as well, just for your own information. So at some point you decide you can make the decision yourself and be informed, right?
Yeah,
So
here's
you're always
how I
going to
lead
give
into
me
that.
financing, right?
I always say, now, Jordan, when you say cash, is this something you have readily available you can write a check for right now? Or is this some part of the whole you're going to be looking to go through a bank or a credit union?
Yeah, probably eventually go through a credit union.
Okay, tell you what, since I'm here anyway, a lot of our customers do is compare our rates with their local bank or credit union, see which one comes in best. So I'll just leave you with a few of those options.
Great.
Let me know if any work for you.
Great.
Fair enough?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now there's one more part. Now you said it's
So financial terms, the part, so we need to extract what could they comfortably put as an initial deposit.
right.
Obviously, we don't say down payment because nobody likes payment.
Sure.
Initial deposit on the investment, and then work out a couple. And this is where selling financing comes into play.
Right, well,
Some of our
it's not even that. It's an investment in your home to appreciate the value of your home.
Absolutely.
So it's not you're not paying for anything. You're
Correct.
investing. You're
And
making an
that's-
investment.
That's why we are strict that salespeople are not to use the word payment in
Yeah,
the
it's an
house.
investment for sure. Yeah.
It's a monthly investment. It's an initial
exactly.
investment.
Yeah,
So
initial investment, yeah.
total investment.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Okay. So and then the step after that would be
So now one thing that we all do really well that we train on, we never ask for the order. We never ask for the order. We assume the order. So for example, I lay out my monthly investments and I ask them, so let me ask you, Jordan, which one of those plans works best for you? And they pick one. Now, before I got into closing, I've already gotten a commitment that from that prospect that if it was affordable, we would have earned the right to ask for their business, right? So we assume that when they commit that it is affordable, we can just go ahead with it. So one thing we train on being assumptive with the close, and out of 75 salespeople, we have 50% closing across the board with all 75.
okay.
So once they pick a finance plan that's comfortable, I confirm. So what you're saying is the initial deposit of 10% and the $200 a month is totally comfortable and not taking any food off the table? Well, congratulations. I knew we could make this affordable for you. Welcome to our company. And then you slide over the credit app, give them the pen, you just assume the order.
Sure.
You don't say, hey, so what do you think? You want to get started? You say, well, congratulations. I knew we could make this affordable. And you assume the order.
And what percentage of the people right then and there will buy, and what percentage need to start going into looping?
I'd say maybe 5 to 10% of people will buy at retail. Most people will object.
Okay. And what's the most common objection? Let me think about it.
Think about it.
Let me check around some of the quotes. I got to shop around.
Yeah, we find with our salespeople, they're trained enough to kill the competition. Shop around is not as common as procrastination.
Think about it.
Yeah, just think
So
about
when
it.
someone says they want to think about, what are you saying?
No problem. I understand. That's why we guarantee the price for 1 year. And that's something that Nathan taught me that he really hammered that home that we train our salespeople at this point in the close, because technically we haven't given them a reason to buy yet. If they object, I'm not going to jump down their throat and say, what do you mean you got to think about it? Say, hey, no problem, Jordan. That's why we guarantee the price for 30
That to me is
days.
the most. When I see a sales training program that starts to that does that, it's like, well, wait, what do you mean? It's all rapport is broken.
So in a way,
right?
we ignore the objection.
Yeah, it's we deflect
Yeah.
it. You deflect it, exactly. Right?
And they'll keep expounding if you just say, hey, no problem. That's why the
Right,
quote's
yeah,
good
yeah.
for 1 year.
What
Then
do you
they'll
say?
start saying, well, the reason we got to think about it is.
So the straight line system, I'm sure it's probably similar. Yeah, here we just say, let me ask you that. Does the actual program itself make sense to you? Loop back into, hey, let's see what you do.
Oh, for the next step?
So if they say, let me think about, what do you say?
Hey, no problem. That's why we guarantee the price for 1 year. Then the next step we go right into is return on investment. So one thing I always teach my salespeople, a lot of times they have to think about it for 2 reasons. One, they don't think it's worth it to invest that much money in their shitty home. Sometimes their trailer home or whatever. 20 grand in windows for my trailer home. What do you mean? Or they just they're not convinced this is a lucrative investment that'll give them a payback. So I basically want to show them.
They're just not certain enough yet.
So that's why, exactly. Yeah. So they need to have more certainty, more information now to justify the investment.
Right.
So that's what return on investment is.
So your first loop essentially is to focus on the return on investment.
So I say, no problem. That's why we guarantee for 1 year. Now, before I leave, that's the takeaway. Remember earlier when I said these windows that could in fact pay for themselves and make you money? So I want to show you what I meant by that. So we get into the return on investment close, where we basically show them that with energy savings, resale value, maintenance costs, how the windows in fact can pay for themselves and make them money. And that can actually lead us into another close. Now, Jordan, let me ask you a question. If you gave me $1 here today and I gave you $2 right back forever after, would that be a pretty easy investment for you?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Let's go ahead and get that investment started. And we do another assumptive close. Now, it has to make sense to do an assumptive close, right? So, for example, let's rewind to financial terms. They say, which one of these plans works best for you? And they say, well, none of them. I'm not going to assume the sale then and be like, well, congratulations. Let's get you started, right? So you have to read the situation. Sometimes it makes sense to go for it. Sometimes it makes sense to hold off.
Right.
Okay.
So let's talk about now the transition from when assuming, and I get what you're saying, obviously, they don't, I don't like any, oh, great, let's, what the fuck you talking about? So let's, assuming they pick one.
Yeah, no interest is interest.
Yeah, no, right. So in the straight line system, where the goal is exactly the same, right? So we know, well, okay, there is obviously a lack of certainty, right? What is it? So you brought up two things. It's certainty that you brought up really mostly the financial side, meaning that as an ROI, does it make sense for them to make the investment in the home? Will it pay off in this particular shitty home they have, right? That's one aspect. I guess as a lay person, without knowing your industry as well as you do, right? I guess I would always consider that perhaps they still don't trust the company. I'd have to just think that even though it was great a job as you did, right? There's a possibility, I guess. I guess step 3, maybe they had been burnt before and they're just sort of very high action threshold people. They just want to think about things. They just like to actually, they got to be ultra high certain, right? What are some of the other reasons you think would be, like, if you had to really dig, what else would cause someone? I mean, maybe if perhaps one of the decision makers isn't there. What do you do when the decision maker's not there? If it's a one decision maker situation.
Well, ideally, when we set these appointments, we are striving to meet with all homeowners and all decision makers.
I assume it happens.
Yeah, we're pretty successful at getting both of them there, but obviously, you're right. A lot of times that doesn't always work out, and could be intentional.
What percentage would you say?
Probably, I would say 10 to 15% of the time.
They're not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes it obviously as an exit ramp, right?
So the key to it is that when the average contractor that doesn't follow our system, a lot of times will go in, immediately try to reset the appointment to meet with both homeowners, which you can go that route, and sometimes it does work. What we train on is let's spend some time with them, let's build some rapport, let's maybe go through the measure, the survey, maybe a little bit of the company's story, and kind of feel it out. Number one, the other person might come home, which happens a lot. Number two, sometimes you can build enough trust and rapport to where you can actually close just one of the homeowners, which is challenging.
Do you ever do a conditional clause? I'll tell you when you close now. If your wife says no, then you can cancel or no.
We say zero condition because that's going to be a rescission or a cancellation 90% of the time.
Is there a rescission? Isn't there a rescission anyway in your industry?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. So there's
Yeah, and that's just it.
So by the way, you could actually. So would you?
So on that topic, we actually strongly train against closing on rescission because it almost every time leads to a cancel. Because you give them a way out, they'll take it, right? So if you have to close using rescission, then you're not doing your job properly.
How often do people cancel?
We have about
surprisingly, as much as we're a first call close sales organization, only about 10% of the time, which is really low for industry standards, because they truly are believing in the product, the company, that they truly got the best bang for the buck in what they receive. So the better you follow the system, the less cancellation you'll actually have.
So we're trying it on for size, right? So someone says, oh, like, I need to think about it, right? So I say, listen, no problem. As I said in the beginning, you have a 1 year strategy here. Let me just ask you a question. Does the actual solution I've laid out make sense? Do you like the solution? That's how my segue would be, just to get them to say, no, it sounds pretty good. And then I'd say, well, let me say this. Remember before I said that, this could actually pay for this. Let me explain that more deeply, how that actually works, right? So that would just be my personal segue. It's, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Part of the reason to doing that, though, Jordan, is that we're rebuilding value. Because like Dom mentioned, when we first lay down retail, we're going back through all the features and benefits again, because the mind is constantly going back to what? the price. So we're rebuilding that value. Part of that ROI is focusing on the return on investment rather than the investment.
So when you ROI it, right? When you go for the ROI, so you're essentially what you're doing is you're increasing that level of certainty that it's going to be a great investment, it's going to be a money-making situation, right? And taking that out of the equation, right? Would you, and then you go directly and you ask for the order again, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
And then if they don't buy that, what do you do?
that's a great question. It actually comes with the most important script in our entire process, which is qualification. So one thing that we do that's very important is if I'm just a machine gun closer, just close after close after close without using takeaways and diffusing any pressure, I'm going to get kicked out of the house really quickly. A lot of our top professionals, they can actually close for 2 hours without being confrontational.
Sure.
So the biggest script we train, which is step 8, is we call it the qualification script. It actually has 3 components. It has a bridge. It has 6 questions that we are scripted. This whole thing is scripted. This is the biggest script that I demand our salespeople need to know forwards and backwards.
And what's the essence of the script? What's the purpose of it?
So basically what it is another huge takeaway to diffuse the pressure. We actually say, now, Jordan, any other questions you have for me before I leave? As I said, the price is good for 1 year. I guess let me ask you, how long do you think it would take for you to get back to me just so I know when to expect your phone call? Really, that soon? So let's say they say 1 week or a month. Really, that soon? You definitely are serious about getting this project done then, aren't you? So we do a takeaway before we get into any more closing, because before I try to land a punch with somebody, I want to make sure their guard's down, right? Then we actually have 6 strategic questions we ask, and the whole goal is to eliminate all the other objections, funnel it back down to money as the only thing standing in the way, and then we finally give them an incentive to buy now. And this is why we don't handle any objections up front early on, because in retail, price, delivery, financial terms, ROI, they still have a year to think about it, right? So let's give it to them. Now I'm basically shortening the timeline with qualification, funneling it down to money, and now I'm going to give a reason to go ahead today with an incentive.
So what is that reason?
So now we actually, because at this point, if you did your job right, we call it front loading the process. The customer should be this close to pulling the trigger, right? And you can read it, they're this close. So we actually lead up to what we call the major close, which we give them a discount for going ahead and moving forward the project now. So now there's a sale or a promotion involved with them moving forward.
The beautiful thing about the qualification script that we teach is it eliminates all objections prior to laying down the initial visit savings. Because I don't want to lay that down and have them say, I'm not sure if this is the window I want. I'm not sure if you're the company we want to go with. We're boiling it down to affordability as the only topic.
Got it.
And then we're also talking about if I could save you a substantial amount of money, you'd want to know about it, wouldn't you, Jordan? So we're getting qualification.
What is the actual promotion? What is it typically? You have different ones that vary from time to time, or it's always the same?
We do vary the promotions from month to month in our marketing, which ties in.
What's a typical one that would be for like the buy now promotion?
So for example, this month we're running a special on labor. We're running 60% off labor. So we would calculate that out. On average, it's usually going to be anywhere from 8 to 12% as far as an initial visit discount, which it needs to be substantial enough. Sure. If you're talking about an average price of $12,000.
I did a training for Wyndham Hotels, vacation rentals, right? Great company. One call closes. And what they do is they have there's the price and then there's today's price. And they're so radically different. Like one would be like $20,000 versus $99,000, right? And they actually stick to it. They have to, else they'd be, unethical. So they actually stick to it.
Yeah.
You want to buy today, you reward people for taking actions.
There's unscrupulous home improvement companies that do that, and really what they're doing there is they have a false retail price. Our price is an actual retail price, so we're not inflating it by 50% just to knock it down by 50. So. Our everyday price is a good value, and sometimes, occasionally, people do call us back on our average price, but basically, the 10% off is a credible discount.
It's really more of a reward, though, is how we position it to the client.
Sure, for taking action fast.
Saves us time and money. We pass on some savings.
So that will be the introduction of a bonus. If you sign today, we have a special today. Labor, save $4,000, right? And then if they don't buy that, you have another bonus.
Yep. So this is where sometimes we'll say now the horns come out or the gloves come off, and I'm actually going to get into objection solving mode. So what basically after I've delivered the initial visit discount, now the cat's out of the bag. I'm there to earn their business today now. Now we get into properly handling objections. So whether it be think about it, shop around, price is too high. Now we have scripted closes now, usually 3 or 4 at least, to handle each objection. And that's where we get into now solving the objection. So if it's think about it, and it always comes back to funneling it back down to money, essentially to simplify the whole closing sequence. We're always funneling it back down to money, and that's what all the closes are designed to do.
So you never say to them, let me ask you a question here. If I done your kitchen for you 2 years ago, done an amazing job, you loved it, brought it on budget, it was amazing. You probably wouldn't be saying, let me think. You'd probably say, just do it right now. Do you ever take that approach where you try to say, you maybe one of the things that's holding you back right now is that, we haven't done business before. It's probably maybe on their mind, and then from there they say, yeah, well, probably if I knew you, if you'd done if I'd done 2 or 3 jobs for you and every one had just been amazing. And I redone your basement, you had, just exactly what you wanted, and you'd sold that house and got an extra 20%, you probably wouldn't be saying, let me think about it right now. And they said, yeah, that's probably true. Exactly. Well, I understand that. Let me tell you a bit more about my company, myself. That's what I would
Part
probably.
of our process is a little bit different.
Do you ever
because
look back? Do you ever get?
we tie back.
Do you ever get
We do a
back to
tie
that
back.
stuff? Do you ever tie back to those?
Yep, you have to. So one of the closes that we talk about is the is it close, right? So basically recommitting them to everything they committed to earlier. So they say they got to think about it. Now we actually have a structured way to handle an objection. The first big part, which is probably the hardest thing to get salespeople to do, is to listen, which usually involves letting them get everything out, the full objection, and even adding a 4 to 6 second pause after the customer speaks. Because a lot of times, just that silent portion will actually accomplish 2 things. Sometimes they'll divulge more information because that silence you can cut the tension with a knife sometimes.
Poisonous silence.
Yeah. And then the second thing is it allows them to go from a logical state of mind to an emotional. Because obviously when they blurt out their objection, they're still logical. If I give them time to just relax and go, let their brain switch gears, now I can actually close them on emotion because I can give them time to process the information. So we go listen, which is, again, let them get it all out, 4 to 6 second pause. Then after that, it's showing empathy. Say, hey, no problem, Jordan. I completely understand. What exactly makes you feel that way? Now I say feel because I want them to, again, give me an emotional response. Then they basically tell me the real reason why they feel that way. Then I repeat it back to them. So what you're saying is you just want to think about it to make sure you're making the right decision. Am I right? They say, yeah. Other than that, was there anything else that stopped us from moving forward? Now, we always use past tense language there, stopped, because we almost want to act as if we're defeated, right? And then we get into solve, which is simply inserting the proper close to handle that objection. So if it's think over, we have, again, several closes to handle that. If it's price is too high, we got several closes for that. And if it's shop around, same thing. We got numerous closes to handle that specific objection. But it's important that you handle it the right way, where you listen, you show empathy, you repeat it, and of course, isolate that objection so I don't have all these other ones coming at me out of the woodwork. And then when I
one of the things I found is that, and it depends on the industry, there are certain industries where the idea, if I'd been doing business with you for a while and you knew, it works really well with industries where you could say, give me a shot small. It's not as quite as applicable in home improvement because it's not auto sales doesn't really work as well because it's not like you can dip your toe in the water. Like in the financial, certain things you get it. Hey, just try one appointment as a coach. Buy one, start small. If I'm wrong, fire me as your coach. Right? It doesn't quite work as well, but I would certainly, intuitively, I would definitely think that it's got to be on people's minds that as great a case as you make about your company, there's just inherent, we've heard, I grew up in an apartment building, so I didn't grow up in a home, but I still knew that home improvement people were not to be trusted. As the common sort of folklore surrounding that, right? That's as a result of not what you guys are about, but unscrupulous plays, especially in the 50s and 60s and 70s, right? Industry's been cleaned up tremendously since then, right? But there's probably still unscrupulous players out there, right? Because there are in every industry.
Yeah.
So one of the things I would definitely consider, I assume you guys do this, is to make sure that when they're doing these loops, they're touching on all 3 of the 10s. So
the whole psychological component of it is that hopefully they'll open up and be candid with you. We're talking a lot about the the process, the scripts. But in my
Sometimes
case,
they
I
don't,
want
though.
I want them to tell me, hey, Nick, if you can get to this monthly investment, then we can
If
move
it's just
forward.
money, right? If it's just money, and maybe in your industry, by the way, see, that's like saying industries like they have peculiarities. I mean, so this, it's commodity. I can, if you can bring it at this price, I can do it, right? In other industries, it's just not like that. It's really more about it's more about starting off small. Let me give me a way to see what you can do for me, and we can make the relationship grow over time. So each industry has its own sort of dynamic. But one thing I have found is that in every industry is that people aren't always so forthright with what's really holding them back, because they're they don't want to say, "I don't trust you. Right. I think you're going to do a crappy job." So they say, "Oh, it sounds good. Let me think about it." Yeah. So the idea is, is to realize that, while they might not be saying that, when you answer these objections, it could be as simple as one or two quick sentences to just button up certainty for each of the 310s, sprinkle it in. And you're probably doing this, I assume, right? Yep. In your tiebacks and so forth. And then as you do that, it's sort of like in the same way you have that check at the end of energy and benefits, I call it, right? Where you sum up all the benefits once before you mention the price, right? Same thing as that. So
the resistance is built into them. Everyone loves to improve their home. I mean, people love it, right? HGTV is a good example of that. But people have the built-in resistance. Even if they want it, it's affordable, they still feel like they have to resist. So we have to keep them relaxed.
Love to buy things and hate to be sold to.
Yeah.
The thing is, on that objection, though, Jordan, if someone has a lack of trust in the company at that point, now, granted, it does happen, no matter how good of a job you do. But the better job you do at front-loading the process, we call it, like Don mentioned, average company story might be 30 to 40 minutes.
Right.
Well, if that's powerful and effective, you shouldn't lack trust in the company. And also, if I've got trust and rapport with you, why would that be an objection at the end? I'm not saying it wouldn't ever be one.
I'll tell you why, because certainty wanes. So as you're telling them that story, they're like, "Oh, wow, this is really great. This is great." And 25 minutes later, they forgot 90% of what you said. So while you did get into a high level of certainty with your story, and I think in your industry, because of the sort of baseline skepticism people have with contractors, you need to front load more because it's such a huge issue. So that's why I know why you're front loading it, because if you don't, they're just so poisoned, you're not open up to really look at things rationally. Right. But my point is, no matter how certain you get someone at 12:01, at 12:09, just human nature is like the certainty starts to wane. So I've always found it really helpful to always it could be a quick sentence or two to
So I was going to point this out. Obviously, they say the dullest pencil has been the sharpest memory for that reason. So as we're getting commitments from the prospect, we actually put it in writing that they're in fact committed to our company, our product, our design. And we can always tie back to this. It's actually built into our needs analysis.
Public declarations, things they write down are always consistency you're creating.
So when I get that commitment that the company is in fact the company they want, I'm like, thank goodness, I'm glad we can take that.
And you know what really freaks me out here? So here we are, right? We're having this rational conversation about selling, and look how we're just really getting into amazing shit, right? When I tried this with Grant Cardone, no, seriously, no. Like, I'm telling you, my opinion is a bit different than you do it, right? We're having these really logical back and forth. They're just totally rolling on the same page, little stylistic differences. Like, oh, it's all great. Well, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, right? What the fuck was with that? Like, it was like, that's what I was hoping would happen with that, where I have three, really great sales. You guys are obviously great salespeople, right? And I never stop learning, and the day you stop learning is the day you're ready to kick the bucket, right? So I gotta say, guys, number one, I think this is an amazing podcast. Amazing. I think you guys are brilliant at what you do. So much commonality with the straight line. I know you read the book. I love the tonality references. Is great. I am super excited. Listen, everybody, there's going to be an event. It's April 17th. Okay, it's Vegas, right? Even if you're not in the home improvement world, all right, you should attend this event. You really should, because it's sales. And I'm going to be going broad, talking about all the stuff I do, not just for home improvements. Obviously, I'm going to skew it towards that, but it doesn't matter what line of work you're in. Also, a lot of you are selling things right now, and, you're in a declining industry, an industry where you have to keep working, no fault of your own. You're in an industry where the margins are collapsing. The competition is getting fiercer and fiercer. The online world is cannibalizing your profits, commoditizing what you sell. This is the opposite. This industry is growing, it's booming, it's lucrative. So if you're a salesperson and you're really not kind of getting what you should get out of what you're selling, you should strongly consider taking a look at what these guys do. They're recruiting salespeople. How would they get in touch with you if they want people looking for jobs with you or just to find out more about your industry? How would they go about doing that?
So you go to closerscamp2020.com.
Closerscamp2020.com, right?
Or grossouniversity.com. We have an educational website that we've built out as well. So there's all the content, the training content, the videos. It's all built into an online educational course as well that they can take to learn more about this.
Yeah, and one thing
You guys
about
are studying a
this,
straight line. You can study this too, by the way. Nothing's mutually exclusive. And when you get great salespeople, stuff to be learned. I'm going to be at this event. Buy your tickets now. You really should be there. Share this podcast with your friends, even if they're not in sales, because the information here is just about communication. To me, it applies to everything in life. Mm-hmm. It's about success. It's about showing up as your best self every single day. Any closing things you guys want to say?
I just want to say, even if you have zero experience in this industry and you want to give it a shot, when you leave, you will be prepared to run leads the next day. You will teach you everything you need to know. Doesn't matter what home improvement product you're selling, or even if you're selling cars, this will teach you how to do it at a much higher level because the concepts, the way they funnel down. So I'm just promising you that you will be a sales professional when you leave this event, no matter what.
Yeah, we haven't touched on, this is one component of many. We have a whole CEO level, management level, breakout sessions that we're conducting. On that level, we have just as many tips and pointers, methods that we train on, how to run the business, keys to profitability. So there's other elements of our camp besides just sales training. And then we're going to be at the Caesars Forum, which is a brand new facility. We're giving away free hotel stay at the link. For a limited time, of course, so people should act fast and get the tickets before we sell out.
Boom. All right, guys, listen, another amazing episode. This is one of my favorites. This is what happens when normal salespeople talk. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Share this with your friends. It's a good one. Take care.